My name is Mario Prado, and I'm a cinematographer. I got started in cinematography, actually in still photography. It all happened at a family reunion many, many moons ago. I had a crush on a cousin of mine, and I had asked my dad, who was pretty aware of what was going on, that I wanted to take pictures for that family reunion. And so he sat down with me, with his camera, an Exacta, as a matter of fact, a very, very old camera, and he attempted to show me how to use a camera. But because I was thinking of other things, I didn't pay attention, and he could see that, so he let me go. I had a great time at that particular reunion. I took pictures not only of the family, 90% on my cousin, because that's who I had a crush on. We took it to the lab, and the lab tech was very, very surprised that there was nothing on the film. At that point, my father said to me, "Now will you pay attention and sit down and let me show you how to use a camera?" From that moment on, the idea of capturing images became my passion. As far as my eyesight, that's a question that even some of my clients asked. And quite honestly, I said, well, if you think about it, a camera only sees with one lens. The challenge for me really wasn't there because I've had this particular situation since birth. When I was very, very young, a young child, I had a virus, and that affected where the light is translated into electrical impulses in the eye. So the eye, this particular eye, was what we call a lazy eye. And even though I wore patches on the good eye to force this one to see and kind of track with the other one, it never really was accomplished. We didn't have the technology to realize that whatever I did, it wouldn't work. So I just donned the patch and said, hey, this is just part of me. In the world of still photography, one of my most memorable projects was working for People magazine. As a lighting technician, and I was using that, working part-time for People, I was called in to do lighting for some of the more difficult assignments that People had. I just so happened to be available when they needed a photographer to do an interview on a particular actor, and they called me in for the lighting. I had no idea who it was. We went to the house. The photographer was very specific to me. He says, listen, you stay by the car. You're the lighting guy, so you just stay with the gear. And I said, fine, no problem. Next thing I know, there's this gentleman running out. He's got shaving cream, on over half his face, and he's in a robe. And as he's getting closer, I said, no, this can't be. You got to be kidding me. And the gentleman who came up to me was actually Charlton Heston. And he's pointing at me. He says, are you the lighting guy? And just as a knee-jerk reaction, I look behind me and see, well, yeah, I was the only guy there. I said, yeah. He says, you're with me. He put his arm around me, and he basically dragged me into the house. And for that afternoon, he was always double-checking with me to make sure the lighting was right on him. I really couldn't believe it, but it really I felt fantastic that day. It was unbelievable. One of the posters that I brought, the movie poster, is one of the projects I'm working on called Jupiter Jack. Jupiter Jack is about a private eye, and he's got a reputation around Jupiter as being kind of like a seedy character, gets his job done, but not necessarily by the book. And Jupiter Jack actually discovers there's a group of real estate moguls that are planning on trying to create a second star in the solar system. And by doing that, technically, we would be able to create more real estate or Earth planets. Obviously, it won't work, but at the same token, these gentlemen are planning on going and actually doing it. And Jupiter Jack, with his, motley crew of misfits, definitely stops them in their tracks. So it's an action-adventure, a lot of fun, a great little storyline, I think. The darkest time in my career was just recently a year ago. I was in a horrific accident, and what I was is in the hospital for 5 months in traction. Now, when they brought me in, they realized that my spine had shifted, so they put me in what they call a halo, and they actually drilled into my head, pulled on it so that my spine would go back into place. Well, it did, but it didn't stay there. So while I was in the hospital for 5 months in traction, they decided that they're going to have to operate. So what they did was they had to do a spinal surgery. They went through the front into my spine, and they fused my 6th and 7th vertebrae, okay? After which, I had to stay in the hospital for an additional 3 weeks, so that's a total of almost 5 months. And then I had to go through rehabilitation. They had to constantly have me checked, make sure that it was fusing properly. And I'll tell you, during that whole period, as far as my career, I just saw it gone. There wasn't anything that I could think of until I could finally find out whether, in fact, I was going to be able to get back the strength in my arm, which I had lost, okay, and just the ability to be able to generate an income, because I was a freelancer. I didn't have a full-time kind of job. So it was scary, very, very scary. I'm totally excited after coming back from this auto accident that I had. It has really given me a fresh opportunity to do what I love and love it even more.